Hello everyone and welcome to this week's tutorial on ProRPA.com. So, in the past few weeks, we have talked mostly about the Process Studio, but we did briefly touch upon the Object Studio as well. Now from this week onwards, we'll be delving mostly with Object Studio, and then we'll see where this whole thing comes together and we'll look at the bigger picture there. So, Object Studio. First and foremost, to go to the Object Studio, it's pretty similar. You go to the Studio menu in here, or you can choose these tabs, and you have the objects and everything right there, and you can create new objects, right? So, there are also some existing objects that you can use, but let's start with a new one for the time being and just walk through how the business objects look like and how it is. So I'm gonna name it as VJ object 1, right? Hit next. You can provide a description if you don't want to. That's all right, that's up to you. It's a good practice to trial version of trial application, something. I mean, could be anything, right? And you get the object, you get the summary as well. And if you're gonna save like new versions, you're gonna save it, then you get a version history as well right there and then, right? So like if you make any changes, if you try to close the object, that happens with the process as well. So then you get like the version history that we have worked also like on so far on the other blog articles. So we go to object, and we always have two business object pages always available: initialize and cleanup. So as you can see, initialize is something which gets executed for the first time when an object is, or any page of the object is being called, just for the first time. Initialize would work, and then that page would get executed. And similarly, once a page or an object is accessed at like the last time by a process, then the cleanup gets executed as well. So you can have some like global variables in here that you may want to use in different actions or different pages, as we can call them, in the business object, and they'll get initialized right at the first time when we execute this object, and we can use it in as many actions as we want, and then during cleanup it will be like the memory for those particular variables would get deallocationized or something, right? Deallocated. Okay, so actions, right? So actions are like pages that we have in Process Studio, which provide different functionalities to our to like what we want to do to automate. So different operations that we may want to perform on external applications, right? Let's say I'm planning to automate my SAP application, then I can probably I'm gonna name a few of those actions. I'm gonna probably create a few of those pages, the actions that are very frequently used in real-time projects, right? Let's say launch, right? I have actually taken similar examples before, so I think you can sort of connect the dots here, right? If I want to add a new page, I'll simply right-click, new. This is going to have login. So what happens is we can have different type of operations that can be carried out in across different pages, across a span of different pages, or actions as we call them in business objects, and we can call them from the Process Studio, right? That's the high order bit. That's how the RPA bots in Blue Prism is built. So what happens is we're gonna go through how to select the elements, and how to perform the operations in subsequent blog posts for sure. But in this particular blog article, I wanted to walk through how the business object looks like. So we have different stages like the way we have in Process Studio, and like we can read, let's say you want to read a particular data from an element of target application, then you can do that. For an example's sake, if there's some predefined value in a text box, right, of the application, then you may want to read that value and probably use it somewhere down the line. So you can read the value of that element using this read. Similarly, if you want to write, let's say you want to do the login. So to log in, you have to enter your credentials, right? So for that, you'll write in the user ID field and the password field, right? Those text boxes. So that's what you do here. Navigate is something that helps you, perform the operations like click or press or, those sort of options like if you want to send some hotkey, which is called the global keys and stuff. Okay. You can also call processes. So let's say I right now have a trial, right? But I also have launch and login operations. So like through the this object, right? If I have an action that's going to call a new process altogether, I can simply leverage the existing processes, and the execution control would go right to that process. So now that process might be, accessing other business objects and stuff. So that is also possible. A perfect use case for this would be that suppose you have, how do I say? You have an existing capability where your bot can do some financial analysis, right? And you want to have another process which is gonna be leveraging, or which is gonna automate the HR processes. So if the HR, let's say, is utilizing the finance also as a part of a sub process, then you can use this particular stage right there, right? We discussed this in the last blog post as well, so it's pretty much the same, right? Page, if you want to call a new page, then you can do that. Let's say right here, if I click it, then I can create a reference to an existing page, and the existing page right now, we have launch and login. So any of those pages in the Process Studio can be simply leveraged around here. Then action. Action helps me select a business object, right? I have different business objects, and on that business object, what are the VJ object 1? I don't have any actions yet. I'll tell you why, or probably we can discuss it later. But because the simple answer is because they are not published yet. But we're gonna get into that later. So action stage is actually very, very important, because the action stage is what gonna pass on the execution from a process to an object, or even in between the objects. The object pages is what I mean, right? Or even if you want to, execute a different object altogether, you can do that. So we have other stages as well that we're gonna leverage as we move forward. Another quick thing that I wanted to touch upon is that one business object can interact with only one target application. Let me say that again. So for an example's sake, you want to, let's say, you want to perform two different operations. First, you want to import data from an Excel document, right? Let's say all the employee information, name, address, street address, telephone number, date of birth, their other credentials, whatever could be the information, right? If it's a part of the Excel, and the first operation is you want to read all this data, right? And the next is you want to enter this information in an enterprise application, say Oracle. Now, what's going to happen is the first process, or the first and foremost thing that you want to do, which is to read the Excel, is going to access a business object corresponding to only Excel. This means the target application in this small sub-process is just the Excel. That's the target application, because that's where we are working on. That's what we are trying to automate. So we have a business object. Actually, we have a predefined business object for Excel, which is very good for us. But at the same time, you can leverage that, of course. But to read the data, that's the business object that you'll be leveraging. And for the second portion of this automation use case, which is to enter data into Oracle Enterprise application, you will use another business object that you're probably going to create yourself, like from the scratch, because to my knowledge, we don't have a predefined SAP PBO yet. We can always develop, like developers like you and me, of course, we guys can, and you may find like a lot of stuff of this, of like similar stuff online. But if not, then it's okay to create it yourself, and it's not rocket science, right? It's robotic science. So we're gonna talk about how to select which application we need to automate and work with its elements and identify it and all that stuff in subsequent blog posts. But just to give an idea, right? This is how the business object overall looks like. The last point that I wanted to touch upon for today's blog post is that all the pages or actions within a business object are exist at the same level of hierarchy. This means launch, login, or I don't know, extraction, import, export, whatever it could be. Navigate to some user maintenance screen or something like that. All this stuff, right? All these actions that you're going to create are going to reside at the same level of hierarchy, which means a process is going to call that particular action itself from this business object, and the control goes back to it. So it's not like, that launch is higher than login or something like that. We create everything equally. Does that make sense? Right? It's not like, you have to access in Process Studio, if you run a process, then main page is like that, the topmost level of the hierarchy, and then we have page 1, page 2, or whatever the naming convention you're going to use. That's how the hierarchy is maintained in Process Studio. But in Business Object, that's not the case. Everything is equal, right? So that is pretty much it. We're going to go through the stages and how to select the target application, all that stuff in next blog post. So stay tuned. Let me know if there are any concerns. I'll be more than happy to address any of those ad hoc issues that you may encounter. And please do like, comment, share, and provide your feedback on the blog post as well as on the YouTube channel. And happy automating. Thank you very much. Goodbye.